Hello and welcome to the Album Man. Today at long last I'm going to be doing my top 50 albums of 2014. 2014 was full of many fantastic releases. So let's start at, I suppose, well, where we have to. Number 50. Lazaretto by Jack White. I mean, the White Stripes, what a band they were. The kings of garage rock. I don't think many people are going to deny that. But Jack White's first solo album, Blunderbuss, really left me quite cold, making it on my 10 disappointing albums of 2012. And here, I definitely think it's an improvement. It's not as good as a lot of the stuff the White Stripes did, but what it does do is it covers a variation of genres, and I can definitely respect the variety that he explores upon this album. I just don't think he does any particularly well. I would say this album is a jack of all trades, a master of none. It's a good bluesy listen, but it's no elephant. And number 49, Isolate and Medicate by Siva. Siva were a band that were an integral part to my youth and to my development of music. I discovered them when I went to see Stayed live, and Siva was supporting, and I honestly still to this day see Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces as a classic album. It's still up there with my favourite albums of all time. Then their last album, Holding On To Strings, Better Left to Fray, it had some catchy tunes, but really didn't work that well. Here, Isolate and Medicate is definitely an improvement. It's not Finding Beauty, no, but improvement over Holding On To Strings, Better Left to Fray. Catchy, post-grunge, what Siva do best. And number 48, the only album to make both my disappointing list and my top 50 albums, that's Kaleidoscope by Transatlantic. While this was an enjoyable effort, I did find it a disappointment in some respects because, as I said on my disappointment list, really I see these one prog's great supergroups, and the fact that they just sort of rehashed on the structure from their first album, SMPTE, and really failed to add anything new or interesting upon the Transatlantic formula, failed to build after the very interesting Whirlwind, which was a 77-minute, just one track. So that was an interesting album, the one that came before, but here, I really found I bring nothing new to the table. They're saying that, it's still Transatlantic, and I really like Transatlantic sound, I like their melodies and the hooks they managed to bring to the table, so this is still a really good album. It's just maybe not the first Transatlantic album I'd recommend checking out, but Transatlantic don't really make bad albums, so of course it has to be. At number 47, Zim Zam Zim by Arthur Brown. Oh, I didn't think I was going to be seeing another Arthur Brown album maybe in my lifetime, to be honest. He hasn't really done much the past few years, but Zim Zam Zim, now this was released on Pledge Music in 2013, but only really was properly released in 2014 for everyone, so I still count it for this year's list. And at times this really does capture Arthur at his peak. The thing is that others it does sometimes feel a little too bizarre, a little inconsistent, but yet it really is still such a captivating listen from the god of Hellfire. Number 46, Rock or Bust by AC/DC. I mean, it's AC/DC, you knew going into this what to expect. It's nothing more, nothing less. Good tracks, couple of killer ones like Rock or Bust and Dogs of War, but it's not Black Ice. Has a bit more filler than the latter, and the second half is yeah, certainly weaker than the first half of the album. But it's AC freaking DC. How could they not be here? And number 45, The Citadel by Ne Obliviscaris. A progressive metal album that really has taken a while to warm to. I know many people named this album of the year or put it very, very high in their lists. But with its blast beats and elements on, it's a very technical, progressive metal. You can definitely see some sort of, it's sort of that cynic style type prog. There were bands that didn't make my list that I didn't think Kind of Meant for You was all that good of an album. Anyway, this is just well performed, well put together, and what I don't see it as being one of the best prog albums of the year, or prog metal albums of the year, as many people do. It's certainly a highlight and certainly an album that deserves attention and deserves acclaim. Very well done, and I look forward to see what direction the band goes in next. At number 44, Boo Hoo Hoo by No Sinner. I have to admit, I am a sucker for the siren-like charms of a 70s style female-led rock band, and especially one that's a bit reminiscent of something like St. Jude. Dear God, do I love some St. Jude. They need to release a new album in 2015, please. Please do, because Diary of a Soul, I think, was so great. This album by No Sinner is 70s revival done well. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, there's better 70s revival albums in the year, which we'll come to, but damn, this is still worth checking out. If you like this type of music, give it a go. And number 43, This Island Our Funeral by Phallic. I know quite a few people didn't actually like this album, and I've seen quite a few very low reviews and quite scathing things about it. I enjoyed it. I mean, I saw them live at Damnation, and I think they're a really promising band. The vocals remind me a bit of James Maynard Keenan of Tool, and with an atmosphere that at times, well, Agalloch wouldn't scoff at. Yes, the music at times can be a little unfocused, and I admit sometimes it can drag in places, but I think overall they managed to create sort of that, it's that sort of black metal influenced sound, but yeah, it's all clean vocals throughout, which definitely appeals to me. And while there are bands this year who've done bigger crescendos and better crescendos than them, I still think they're quite underrated, and if you like Agalloch and stuff, interesting band. And number 42, Dressed in Voices by Mostly Autumn. The beloved British prog band take a step into the world of the concept album with their 2014 release. And this concept is based on a killer and the death of the victim. And Mostly Autumn, definitely one of my favourite neo-prog bands. I particularly love the vocal interplay between the lead guitarist Brian Josh and the lead vocalist Olivia Spahn and Josh. Now, the thing with Dressed in Voices, I would say I'm not quite as big on it as I was Ghost Moon Orchestra, their prior album, and the reason for that is that while as an album this works well and has a lot of flow to it, I just don't really feel it has any particularly standout tracks. But still, it's one of those where as an album, it's something you have to listen to in one sitting, and it's quite long. It's about 70 minutes, if I remember, something like that, 65, 70 minutes. So you have to listen to it in one, dedicate some time to it, and it's a grower. It's definitely one that grew on me. At first I was like, it's not too great, but it's definitely one that's grown on me throughout the year, and one that if you're willing to give it the time of day, could be quite a rewarding album. Number 41, this is one I wasn't expecting when it was initially announced to make my top 50, but here it is, and that's just because of the strength of the album. Going Home by Wilko Johnson and Roger Daltrey. Roger Daltrey, of course, the lead singer of The Who. I'm sure you all know him. But Wilko Johnson, maybe slightly less familiar with. He was the previous guitarist of Dr. Feelgood in their classic era, and what a fantastic and interesting guitarist he is. He has a very, very unique technique, one that I can't really name another guitarist who uses. You'd have to watch him play. It's difficult to describe. Very interesting technique he uses. Classic sort of barroom blues guitarist. And unfortunately, some of the backstory for this is, well, Walker believed this was going to be his last album. He was diagnosed with cancer and refused treatment because, well, it spread too far, so they didn't believe they could save him. But in 2014 he had some radical new surgery which appears to have saved him. He seems to have recovered and is doing well. And if you're still not familiar with Wilco, he's the guy who played Sir Ilan Payne in Game of Thrones, you know, the executioner. So that's freaking cool with his tongue cut out and all that. But yeah, aside from that, this is, even though it's just a covers album, there's no original songs on it. That's why it would have been probably a lot higher if there were original songs on it, because this collaboration has so much energy to it. But the covers of previous Dr. Feelgood stuff, even a Bob Dylan cover of Can You Please Crawl Out of Your Window, which is my favourite track on the album, is just such a good one to chill to, one to listen to at night. And number 40, Blind Rage by Accept. My relationship with Accept has been not a strong one, due to my great dislike of Udo Dirkschneider. Great name, Udo Dirkschneider, no one's going to deny that. But his voice, horrible voice. I'm sorry, Udo. I really dislike your voice. But with him out of the picture, I find Accept to be, well, all the better. This is classic 80s metal, done in 2014, and done well. I've had some people laud this very, very highly, like 9s and even 10s. I wouldn't go that far. I think there's better classic metal albums of the year. This is certainly one of the highlights. If you're a fan of TheAIbumMan or just classic 80s metal, you're going to like Blind Rage by Accept, no doubt about it. And speaking of slightly better traditional metal albums, we have one of the premier acts of sort of, I suppose, new wave of traditional heavy metal with Grand Magus and that album Triumph and Power, clearly taking a lot of cues from Saxon and other new wave of British heavy metal acts, resulting in something that sounds quite classic, yet with a modern twist. They're just able to really capture that vibe, that feel, and those catchy choruses of the days of metal of old, and they do a bloody good job of it. And number 38, Magnolia by Pineapple Thief. Now, while I would consider this a weaker album to Somewhere He Was Missing and All the Wars, their previous two efforts, this album is still not one to be underestimated. It's Pineapple Thief. Again, if you don't know who Pineapple Thief are, they are a prog band, and a bloody good prog band. And I would say they are genuinely progressive. They often incorporate some mild electronica into their stuff, not too much. They're mainly a guitar-driven band. Bruce Yard, I'm never quite sure how to say his name, is the main driving force. He even did a collaboration with Jonas Rensk last year, Wisdom Crowds, which made it, I think it was number 50 on my 2013 list. So this is the second time in a row we've had Bruce Yard here. And he definitely deserves it. His previous two albums are fantastic. This is, I mean, the thing is, it's still a highly melodic, emotive record, but it's more of a grower, I would say, than the previous two. It doesn't have some of the lengthening tracks and some of the progressive elements, I suppose. It's more of a stripped-back sound for Pineapple Thief, and it still works well. It's Pineapple Thief. They really can do no wrong at the moment. Number 37. This could be classified as disappointing just because it's one of my favourite artists ever, and it's not in my top 10. Though, obviously, it's the number 37, so this is still a damn great record. Different Shades of Blue by Joe Bonamassa, my favourite guitarist of all time. I've said that many times before. And this really is a bit different from him. He decided with A Different Shade of Blue to not do any covers, which is something I've been criticising him for a few years now, of relying too much on covers and using it as a bit of a crutch. And he seems to acknowledge this, so decided to go for all originals, and well, it hasn't paid off quite as much as his albums of quite a few covers. This is a solid tribute to the blues of yesterday, definitely channeling some of those classic electric guitar Delta blues guitarists, and you can definitely hear a lot of Delta blues influence here. And while it's good at what it does, it just fails to create any really standout moments. There's no Ballad of John Henry or Slow Gin or Heartaches with Nichols on this album. It's more of a sort of a, I would describe it maybe as a muted album. Again, it's Bonamassa doing the blues, so it's going to be great. His voice, I honestly think, just gets better with every album. He was never the most natural singer, but damn has he been improving with every single album. His guitar playing as usual is just sublime, but there aren't any real like solos I would pick out as like one of his best or just as a really amazing, breathtaking solo. It's just a consistent album, and he went to write it in Nashville, and I think that sort of Nashville gloss has maybe made it not quite as good as some of his previous records. And number 36, one of the best supergroups of the year, though not the best, Killer Be Killed's self-titled album. I mean, damn, on paper, a supergroup with members of Mastodon, Mars Volta, Dillinger Escape Plan, and, well, Max Cavalera, create a surprisingly good album. I say surprising mainly because supergroups are usually, supergroups are not known for always working very well, but what they managed to do is really capture the best aspects of the members of the bands, with the opening track, Wings of Feather and Wax, being one of the best songs of the year. Damn, that song is catchy as all hell. What a track that is. Definitely, the only thing I would say, Max Cavalera, like if he wasn't on the album, it'd probably be higher up on my list. I don't really like his voice. I'm not a big Soulfly fan or fan of his work in general, to be honest. So I could have done without him, but still, interesting supergroup, very well done. And number 35, World on Fire by Slash, featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. So this is the third of Slash's solo albums, and of course, as Guns N' Roses are my favourite band, I avidly follow Slash's solo career, since he's one of my favourite guitarists of all time. While this is an album that contains many of the best songs of Slash's solo career. Seriously, some of these, like Automatic Overdrive, are killer tracks. The only reason this isn't in my top 15 is because, dear God, is it long. Damn, this album never ends. I mean, it's 77 minutes long. 77 minutes long. With 17 tracks as well, far too much filler to be potentially higher. That's the issue here. They had the potential for a 9 out of 10 album. And instead, it just doesn't end up quite being that good, because this type of music of hard rock with big choruses, guitar solos, doesn't really lend itself to being 77 minutes. No. But yet saying that, some of the songs on here are so bloody good I can forgive its length and some of its filler. Because Slash, I think with the next album, if he does another album and it has some of the song quality of this, and it's not 77 minutes long, then damn, he could be on to something classic there. Number 34, an album that split a fan base and that has received mixed reactions. Turned Blue by the Black Keys. Now, I don't believe this was near the level of El Camino, I'm not going to say that, but I still think this is an enjoyable Keys album. Yes, it can be at times a rather monochromatic journey into the psychedelic blues that Dan Auerbach has decided to take us in with Turn Blue. But I kind of like the style. It's just one of those albums I found myself putting on a lot, particularly in the summer. I just found myself listening to this album a lot. Well, again, you know, it has some really good tracks. I like particularly things like Fever and Weight of Love. It's just genius. When I had that oat note, it was like, oh, this could be one of the best albums. And then it kind of goes a bit downhill from there. Yeah, I just find some of the songs, they don't differentiate themselves in the same way the tracks on El Camino did, or even on Brothers. I find the direction interesting, and I'm really quite, again, interested just to see where they're going to go from here. I'm honestly not quite sure, but wherever it is, I'm looking forward to it, because the Black Keys, killer band, my favourite garage rock band, to be honest. And number 33, one of the best blues albums of the year, Influence by Philip Sayce. A lot like Bonamassa, Sayce returns to his roots on this album with an electrifying blues album of covers and originals. There's a bit let down by its bookend tracks, which are covers, and they don't work, those particular covers, because they try and use like original vocal parts from like 30s, 40s blues songs, and adds like modern production and modern guitars over the top of these vocals that were recorded on, well, pretty crap studios or whatever, because they're in the 30s, and that just sounds weird and jarring and pretty horrible. Aside from that, there's the old cover that's a bit funkier. Sayce always likes to add a bit of funk, which I'm not too big on. But damn, when this album's good, this album is good. Blues rock at its freaking finest. Philip Sayce really knows how to excel when it comes to blues rock. Does a good job here. Number 32, Back from the Abyss by Orange Goblin, a slice of stonery doom from London's finest, and another consistent effort that really just cements it as one of the best acts in British stoner and doom. I saw them at Damnation Festival, great. My favourite track overall from there still, I think, is Red Tide Rising from Eulogy of the Damned. But this album really just continues their sound. It doesn't do anything new or particularly refreshing to it, but it's Orange Goblin. You know what you're going to expect, and to be honest, it's so awesome, you don't really care. Number 31, Grand Morbid Funeral by Bloodbath. What better death metal album than this raw, heavy, unrestrained release from the classic supergroup? Featuring new vocalist Nick Holmes, of course, of Paradise Lost fame. What a band, Paradise Lost. I can't wait for their 2015 effort. That's going to be cool. And damn, he fits in perfectly. I mean, yes, I still prefer Mikkel Akkerveld on vocals when it comes to Bloodbath, just because Mikkel Akkerveld is my favourite death vocalist. And while this type of very classic, very just raw death metal, it's not trying to be progressive at all, not trying to be atmospheric, not trying to do anything new to the genre. It's just trying to deliver something just unrestrained and heavy and brutal. And with members of Catatonia and Opeth in here, these are some talented prog musicians just celebrating the roots of the genre they love. And to be honest, when an album like this, Back to Basics, is just done so well, I can't help but sit up and pay attention. And that's what I did with Grand Morbid Fiend 1, and bloody pleased I did.